25,000 pounds of jet thrust turned their secure area into debris. Welcome back to Reddit Court Files, where we pull real stories from Reddit and put them on trial. Today's case comes from Malicious Compliance. Quick note, nothing in this video is legal advice. We're storytellers, not lawyers. Now, let's get into it. This story takes us to an International Air Force exercise held at a Spanish airbase. Our contingent, one of several nations participating, consisted of roughly 20 fighter jets and 200 personnel, all there to train together in various combat scenarios. Now, for an exercise of this scale, a lot of logistical planning goes into it, starting with something called a site survey. About 6 months before the exercise began, a small delegation from our team traveled to the Spanish base for several days. Their job was to inspect the facilities and coordinate procedures. They covered everything from where our aircraft would be parked and what rooms we could use for our equipment, to emergency protocols, and crucially, how refueling and defueling of the jets would work. Everyone understands aircraft need to be refueled, usually immediately after landing, because the real danger comes from fuel vapors, not the liquid fuel itself. A fully fueled aircraft is actually much safer than one with nearly empty tanks full of combustible vapors. However, sometimes faults are discovered after refueling, faults that might require removing fuel lines or other components during repairs. For that reason, there's a standard procedure called defueling, where the fuel is simply pumped back from the aircraft into a tanker truck. During the site survey, this was approved without issue. We were explicitly told we just needed to notify them, and a specialized fuel truck would come and recover the fuel. Fast forward to a day during the exercise. We'd already been flying successful missions alongside the other nations for several days. Aircraft landed and were refueled as usual. Afterwards, while downloading the flight data, one aircraft reported an electrical fault in one of its external fuel tanks, those ones mounted beneath the wings to extend range and endurance. After some troubleshooting, it became clear the external tank had to be replaced and repaired in the workshop. Under normal circumstances, this is not a major job. The tank is defueled through the aircraft, removed, a replacement tank installed, and then the jet is refueled again, usually a 20 to 30 minute task. Or so we thought. When we requested the defueling truck, as previously agreed during the site survey, we were suddenly told things were no longer that simple. First, a specialist would have to take a fuel sample from the aircraft. That sample would then be sent to a laboratory, and once the results arrived several days later, we could finally receive the tanker truck for defueling. For us, this was completely unacceptable and entirely contrary to the agreements made beforehand. Losing the aircraft for several days would have been a significant setback, since several pilots would be unable to participate in the exercise. When we complained, every reasonable compromise was rejected, and the discussion ended with a rather snarky remark from the Spanish liaison officer, "Then just burn the fuel if it's that important." We didn't need to be told twice. The next morning, 5:30 a.m. The official exercise schedule for the day wouldn't begin until 10. Long live Spanish snugness, and there was barely any activity on the base. A light haze hung over the airfield, and almost no sound disturbed the silence of the Spanish plateau. Yet 4 people were already awake, casually walking along the line of parked jets on the apron. Morning dew covered the aircraft with a dull shimmer, while dawn slowly prepared to give way to sunrise. It was a peaceful moment, right until 2 jet engines suddenly roared to life. We applied as much thrust as the brakes could physically hold. The asphalt behind the aircraft dried almost instantly, and beyond it lay a strip of dry earth. Sand, dust, dead vegetation, and small stones were blasted into the air, forming a massive cloud of debris that drifted roughly 100 meters straight into an open Spanish Air Force shelter. It took us about 25 minutes to burn through 1,700 kilograms of jet fuel. Shortly afterwards, the external tank was replaced, and by around 7 a.m., we were able to report the aircraft fully mission-capable again, so the pilots could plan their sorties for the day. That same morning, our commanding officer was spontaneously invited to meet the Spanish base commander to explain exactly who had woken him up so early and why. Meanwhile, Spanish personnel spent a full 2 hours sweeping all the dirt and debris back out of the shelter. After we explained the situation, we were informed that from that point onward, we would be allowed to use the defueling truck without any prior fuel sampling. Unfortunately, we never needed the procedure again before the exercise ended. However, the liaison officer, who had so helpfully suggested we just burn the fuel, was later observed attending a rather lengthy meeting with the base commander himself. And had there not been aircraft launching in the meantime, you probably could have heard the commander yelling all the way to the runway. Turns out, sometimes the most inconvenient interpretation of a snarky suggestion is the most effective way to cut through unnecessary bureaucracy. That's the verdict on today's case. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Was justice served? Make sure to subscribe so you never miss a filing.